We're in the lab today. Kevin and I are working on deploying StorONE S1. And S1 is the operating environment for StorONE, who, we really think of them as a leader in the software-defined storage space. We're taking their software application and layering it on top of a Supermicro server that we have in the lab. We recently reviewed. It's a one-use server with hard drives and NVMe, right,
Yeah, it
Kevin?
has four terabyte NVMe drives up front.
And then a bunch of 12 terabyte hard drives.
Correct.
And so that platform is really neat because of its flexibility to use the NVMe drives either as a pool or cache in front of the hard drives. But one of the challenges is that there aren't a lot of software applications out there to let you take advantage of, especially mixed environments like that.
Yeah, rolling your own, it's either ease of use versus performance versus compatibility, and usually it's hard to find a mix of all the things you want.
All right, so we're working on S1 today, and we've got Jack from StorONE who's going to help navigate this process and back us up in the event that we run into any trouble. Thanks for joining in, Jack.
Hey guys, how are you?
We are well, and as you can see, we're already spun up. We're using a Mac for this deployment, which is somewhat unique, but we went to the IP address, downloaded the client already, and are ready to go. I know I'm doing this on a Mac, but you guys support all sorts of different access environments for the GUI.
Yeah, absolutely. So our GUI is totally portable and totally cross-platform as well. So it'll work on Windows, Mac, Linux, even on mobile, and that's really great for ease of management. Let's say you're walking around in a large data center and you have a number of racks and need to figure out where a certain disk is in the enclosure to pull that. You can have this up on your iPad and just walk up to the rack you think it's in, hit the LED light and then it'll blink for you. So I mean, you don't have to tote around your laptop and balance it on your knee while you're trying to get stuff done. So that's a really, really great thing.
Well, that's great. Let's hit that button, Kevin, log in. And so, Jack, you'll walk us through some of what we're looking at. I know, the application, you guys talk about it being real easy to use and quick to use. And so as we go through here, just highlight what we're looking at. So,
Yeah.
well, I know this part. It shows us all of our drives, so that's a good start.
Yep. So this is the screen where it shows you all the drives that you have in there. You can select which ones you'd like to add into the system, and then hit approve, and hopefully it'll just take a couple of seconds, and then bring those drives on board, and then we can take a look at some of the other functions of the platform.
While it's doing that, Jack, just refresh my memory. You guys work, I think, on a capacity license. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So it's basically depends on how big of a system you want to run.
Okay. Well, it doesn't seem to have cried about ingesting all those
Yep.
drives.
There are no errors found. So if you click that magnifying glass there, so this is our node that's running the StorONE software. Now, typically people would run this in an HA type of environment, so they would have two nodes that have some sort of interconnect, and then that would prevent from any single node failing. And then, of course, we have replication functionality as well, which allows you to obviously replicate to another set of nodes in multiple locations. So we have all that stuff in terms of availability built into the system. So what you're taking a look at now is actually our inventory screen, and that's kind of going to give you a breakdown of all the physical assets and components that are connected to the system. So as you see right here, this is showing you, right now all the different NICs in the system, and then if you want to just enable this specific NIC for iSCSI, you can just hit that little radio button there, and then it'll enable iSCSI on this interface.
So, Jack, if we were doing multi-node, obviously we're just working on one server today, would you set them up individually and then pair them at some point, or how does that work?
There is a point post-install before you would get into the GUI where you would set up the HA.
Okay.
If you guys, we didn't really show that to everyone right now, but that's basically done through a text user interface immediately post install. Where you would configure your networking, configure your license, configure HA and stuff like that. So we didn't take a closer look at that, but it's definitely part of the post install process. And it's actually pretty simple. It's just basically defining an interconnect and then letting the system know, which node is primary, which is secondary, and just hitting save, and you're done.
Do you expect like-to-like configs in that, or could somebody configure, the second node a little bit lighter if it's going to be a failover node? How does that work?
Yeah, so we typically, we typically prefer it to be the same configuration on both. That being said, things will run, but it's just in order to prevent, ambiguity and kind of unknown variables, you may want to have both nodes be the same thing.
All right. Well, Kevin's scooting ahead now while you and I are jibber jabbering.
Yeah, looks like he's had some fun with the system already.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna just jump into creating a volume.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So yeah. Before we do that, let's actually go ahead and define some hosts so
Okay.
that we'll have them here. So if you just click the hamburger menu on the top left there, and then you see we have this provisioning sub menu. Let's click on host first, and let's just define an iSCSI host there.
Okay.
Is this where we have the obligatory part of why our network's not 172?
No, I think we'll leave that for a different podcast.
Wait till someone asks that in the YouTube comments. All
Now,
right, we'll save it.
Do we have to type in the IQN, or
yes, but you can just you do need to type it in. You could just type in IQN dot storage review test or whatever you want for now. That'll be sufficient. And then don't forget to give the host a name at the top as well.
Okay. The enter host name.
Yep, that's good. And then let's also go into NAS server there on the provisioning menu. And let's just set up a NAS server real quick so that we have something to connect the volumes up to. So this is the NAS server interface. You're just going to give it a name on top. If your environment includes Active Directory, then you can go ahead and define that in here. For the purposes of this, I don't think you guys are running any AD, so you can just define a work group. And then you can tell it which interface you'd like this to go out on. So the one interface that's connected on. And then just go ahead and type in the rest of those settings.
Okay.
Perfect. So we basically configured defined an iSCSI host and defined the NAS server. So now when we do go ahead and create an application or a volume, we'll be able to connect those up really, really easily. So I guess let's go ahead and create a volume.
And now you get to make your volume.
Yep. And so
volume one, volume one.
Yeah, it's got to be volume 1.
Damn you, where's your creativity?
I have none. And since we'll be using VMware, we're going to change this to 512 byte. And let us know, for this disk pool, give us an idea of how we should set this up.
Yeah, so what this does is basically defines the different tiers for our auto tiering functionality. So that's one of the great things about our platform is that we have the auto tiering built in. What this will do is basically what you're telling this the system is that I want this volume to reside primarily on the NVMe media, and then tier 1 is going to be HDD. So what this is going to do is basically it's going to take a look at the data that's living on the system. It takes a look at things. Such as read patterns, write patterns, how long the data goes touched or untouched, and then it'll tier those down. So if you have a bunch of stuff, but you're infrequently accessing most of it, it'll move that stuff down to the HDD tier and actually move those blocks down to the HDDs so that you're not wasting your precious and really quick NVMe space on data that's infrequently accessed. So you're always going to have your most used data on the most, the most quickly accessible media that the system has.
All right, so Kevin set up a tiered volume, but if we wanted to, we could have done hard disk only or NVMe only, since those are our two media.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so what you picked, a 5 terabyte volume, is that what you did?
Yep, 5 terabytes. Still sit nicely inside the NVMe tier and fit a bunch of our workloads.
Okay, great.
Great, and this lets you define your snapshot policy. So, you can come in here. You can even, if you click the magnifying glass on any one of those, it'll give you a more fine-grained, time scale, and then you can just go ahead and define what you want there as often as you'd like. Now, all of our snapshots, we like to say that, they're unlimited and free. The technology that we're using basically doesn't disturb system performance while these are taking place. So, you can feel free to schedule those whenever you want. As critical as your application is, you can define all of that, and we basically just kind of get out of your way.
Okay, it's pretty cool.
All right, keep scrolling. What else do we have?
So here I see data availability. What is I'm assuming this is the deployment standard, but are there customers that are leveraging fewer disks or more disks depending on chassis size or host size?
Yes. So this is where you define what we like to call VRAID, and it's basically an advanced form of erasure coding. And what this lets you do, it lets you define, for those of us who aren't really so familiar with it, it basically helps you define how many performance fragments and how many redundancy fragments you want on the system. So, this totally depends on you. And now I should clarify one thing by saying that this is, in S1, this is totally per volume. So the great thing is, depending on what your usage of that specific volume is, and depending on, what application this is backing, you can go ahead and define one volume for more performance, for less redundancy. You can go ahead and define, let's say you have some really critical data and you want extra redundancy, you can define that volume separately and change those settings. And that's really great because in a traditional RAID system, you're defining RAID for the system, and then you can't change it. So if I say, this system is RAID 6, it's RAID 6, and there's nothing I can do about it. Here, we give you the flexibility to choose, what you feel you need for your specific application and for your specific volume. So that's really one of the amazing features of our system.
So Jack, you guys, and every time I've talked to Gal, you guys are always pitching flexibility, and I know, so you're talking about some of it there. I've already kind of scooted down and I'm looking at the file object block and the connectivity options you can do. Is there anything you can't do in terms of protocols or support out of this system if you've got the right NICs in there?
No, absolutely not. And the way that the system was developed was to be totally future-proof as well. So if, let's say, in the future, there's a new protocol that comes out, or there's some new media that's developed, the system, will hopefully be able to, to utilize all of that. I mean, we do, like, for example, now we also do fiber channel as well, not just iSCSI. So that's in there. We, in terms of, if you click on file object, you can see that we have both S3 compatible protocol as well as traditional SMB CIFS and NFS. So again, the system is made to be expandable and future-proof.
Okay. So for this quick 5 terabyte iSCSI block share, it's telling me I need another volume name. Is it something different than what's happening?
No, so that basically, it's just because you didn't input a volume name on that volume on the right there. But if you click yes, it'll auto name it. So you don't really have to play with that too much.
Okay.
It just kind of gives you that message in case you decide you want to go in there and put in a manual volume name. So the application was created, and then if you just click refresh, you should be able to see it there.
There it is. All right, so we've got our first volume.
Absolutely. And then if you click on performance, so this is giving you a look at the volume, at the statistics that are being collected by the system for the volume. Now you can go ahead and change that to live, and you can actually take a live look at what's going on in your system in real time. So right now,
little light now.
Yeah, you're not connected to anything, so it's not going to show you anything. But if you did want to take a look at that, that's available to you once the volume is actually up and running and operational and connected to one of the hosts on the back end.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
What else do we need to do here? So we've ingested all of our storage. We made a volume with Kevin's creative volume names, and what else?
Yep. So if you click at the top where those little icons are, if you want to click on the one that looks like a power plug.
Yes.
Yep. So that'll show you connectivity. Right now, it's not actually connected. I think we might have, when you switch screen there, it didn't save the iSCSI host. So if you want to click on edit on the pencil, and then we can go in and define the connectivity. Now, we may want to show file and object as well. So if you guys scroll down, yep. So add that, and then let's just add another volume that's file object.
Okay.
And you can use the same settings. And I guess Brian, if you want to ask any questions now, it would be an ideal time while he's doing that.
Yeah, watch this, volume 2. I can't wait. This is so perfect. Yeah. This is so exciting. So thinking about how your customers are using your application, are you seeing a lot of mixed workloads on these nodes, or is it largely database? I mean, where are you seeing success, or where's your sweet spot, I suppose? Because one of the challenges in being so flexible that I think maybe StorONE as a company runs into from an identity standpoint is, yeah, we can do everything, but like, what are you really strong at, unless it's just being insanely flexible?
So, I mean, that's our strength, is just the flexibility and the performance. One thing that kind of differs in our system is that we're not writing disks using cache. So we write directly to the disks, which is one of the ways that we're able to squeeze out more performance from the system. I think that our core strength is what we like to call total resource utilization, is whereas other systems have a whole bunch of bottlenecks in place that kind of prevent you from extracting the maximum performance out of the underlying hardware. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on getting around, and what we shoot for is really total resource utilization. So I think that, combined with flexibility, combined with just the ease of use, as you guys see, it makes for a very, very compelling argument and a very compelling story to anyone that's really looking to deploy storage for whatever their front-end application is.
All right. Well, there you go. Flexibility and performance. So Kevin made what'd you do? A file share?
Yeah, NAS, NFS share.
Yeah, and if you hit plus on there, where it says share. Yep. So now you have NFS and SMB. So you can access the same data over both protocols, and that's really cool because that comes into a real utility when, for example, let's say you have, you're running some kind of web service, right? And then you have your designers and programmers are all working on the files that end up, that the web server ends up serving. What you could do here is you can actually export it over SMB to those users and those clients, and then let them work on those files. And then you can expose the same share over NFS to the web server, or to the proxy, or whatever it is, so that essentially you don't need to copy the data over once you have it. You only need one copy of your data, and you're serving it over multiple protocols.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
And then if you want to hit object as well, you can go ahead and define an object store. So you can access this over all three of those protocols simultaneously.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of software defined that really targets talking S3, and there are some that are more NAS centric, but I'm a bit at a loss to think of something that does all of those in addition to block too. Yeah, that's fun. Are you gonna save this and move on?
Yeah. So I think you just have to input some settings there, and then
keep the best.
Yep, you're gonna have to put in a share name.
Oh,
come on. So Jack, for people, what does a POC look like for you guys? How does someone get started? Obviously, if they can hit the contact form and get in touch with you, but what does a normal POC look like? Do you deliver a trial license, or do you send them a box? What do you normally do?
So we basically, like the software, we're flexible as well. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. We do run, both on bare metal like you guys have here, and in a VM environment as well. So I guess you guys, can say that we basically want to give you whatever's easiest for you. If anyone's looking for a POC, the typical way that it works is that we'll kind of go through your environment and figure out what it is that you guys are trying to set up, and how your environment is set up. And then we can either ship you a box that's running, typically it's like a dual node server that will be HA compatible. And then you can, just plug that into your data center and start doing it like that. If you already have hardware that you'd like to use, we can go ahead and install on that, either bare metal or through a VM or whatever it is. We've certainly had people do that as well. And accordingly, we do everything from, software only licenses to full on like all flash array as a service. So if you need, a whole bunch of capacity for whatever length of time, and you don't want to get locked into a contract or anything, we can actually, just ship you a box and let it sit wherever you want it for the time that you need. And then once you're done, you just, wipe the drives and send it back to us.
All right, cool. Well, I suppose at this point, Kevin, what are you going to do? Get this thing hooked up to VMware environment and get testing?
Yeah, I added one host onto it and migrating a VM over.
Oh, look at that. We got a squiggle, Jack. We got a squiggle.
Nice.
Yeah, I know for the work we're doing with you guys, the intent, of course, is not to show necessarily, the biggest and best numbers. This box is relatively modest in its configuration. We picked this box mostly because of the combination of hard drives and NVMe in a 1U box. It's a unique box, and it felt like we needed a unique solution on the software side to go make it work. So this should be fun. We'll play around with it and see how we do.
Yep. And then do you guys want to show off snapshots and then our monitoring real quick before we
Let's do it.
Away? Cool. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Easy. So consistency groups are basically there in case you need to define multiple volumes that are going to act sort of in lockstep. So essentially you want those to be consistent across the board. So what that'll let you do is basically define a policy for the whole group instead of one particular volume.
Okay, great.
So now that it took a snapshot, if you click that little clock icon on top.
Clock, top right. Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then hit that. and then you see those are the two snapshots that you took there. So you can click on either one of those, and then hit the clock again, and it'll let you restore. And then you could just give it, like an underscore, whatever, restore, appended to the end. And then that snapshot becomes available for you to mount, and then you can just pull out whatever data you want. That whatever happened to it before it's still there from the time that you took the snapshot.
Yeah, we destroy data and try not to do much with production anyway, so we sometimes forget about these continuity features that the enterprise likes to know are there. So yeah, snapshots are normally one of the last things we mess around with.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, this is, we're definitely an enterprise storage platform. So all the stuff that you expect to be in there is here. And, you can feel free to use it depending on whatever your use case needs are.
All right. Well, cool. Well, we'll play around with it some more, and we'll share those results on the website. But for now, this is a very comprehensive walkthrough of S1. And Jack, we really appreciate you doing that with us today.
Thanks, guys. And if you don't mind, I just like to show this off real quick, because this is pretty neat as well. This is our monitoring page, and this lets you take a look at all the statistics that are being that are being collected from the system. You can see things like if you scroll up, you'll see your capacity. You can take a look at what the allocation looks like so everything is thin provisioned, right? So you can define a volume that's 5 terabytes, but it won't actually be, cutting off those whole 5 terabytes. It'll use them as needed. So if you actually hit allocation, it'll show you what's defined versus what was actually provisioned. And what's really cool is you could do that per pool as well. So if you have NVMe, HDD, SSD, whatever it is, you could take a look at that per pool, which is really cool. So now, so you see that right there. There's almost nothing on the HDDs yet, which is great. And I'm sure as you guys play with it, it'll definitely change, and you'll get to take a look at how the auto tiering actually works.
All right. Cool.
Top volumes here is going to give you a look at the top 10 volumes of the system. And then you can sort those by capacity, by latency, by IOPS, by snapshots. And then so the graphs that we looked at earlier, you can get to those from here as well by clicking on a particular volume. It'll update kind of the view exactly.
Nice.
And then if you go back and you scroll down a little bit more, so before we took a look at the performance of the first volume that you created, but here it'll give us, so just up a little bit more where those where the graphs are running live. So this is taking a look at the whole system performance. So this is not just the one volume, this is everything. Now if you do click on one of the volumes in the list on top, it will filter it down to just show you that single volume. So you have, you can view the whole system or you can view a single volume. I think just hit capacity so that the bar graphs are a little bit more visible.
Oh, and then hit the bar. There you go.
Yep. And then so now you see it's letting you see that specific volume. And then all the way at the bottom is the entire system hardware utilization. So, I mean, right now, there's not really too much going on. So you see we're not really doing anything except for using a little bit of memory. But as you continue to use the system, you can take a live look and see how that goes. And I'm sure you guys will be happy to show off some of that stuff.
Yeah, we'll see if we can't get some more squiggles on those lines and work them over pretty good.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's cool. Well, thanks again, Jack. We really appreciate you walking us through it, and I'm sure this will be a great resource on the YouTube channel.
Absolutely. And, like we tell all our customers, we're here for you. So if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to let me know, and we can always help you guys figure out whatever it is you're trying to do, or help you tweak the system a little bit, squeeze out every last IOP out of there.
All right, well, we'll do so. Kevin will definitely take you up on that, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
All right. Thanks again, Jack.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.